What's up guys, welcome back to Dead Malls, and welcome to Central Illinois, where today as we continue towards Cincinnati, we make a brief stop at the Hickory Point Mall in Forsyth. This was one of the malls I was most looking forward to be honest. There are just so many great photos of this place in its early days, and those center court fountains were just calling my name. I'm a big sucker for neons, mall plants, and especially fountains. Built in the late 70s, this was one of those malls that's right between generations, where it isn't a park-like mall, but it isn't quite a neon mall. Instead, it has these classic sort of arched ceilings and the center court fountains, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to spoil the mall before you even see it. Before we jump in, I'd like to congratulate our winners who were able to guess the next mall. Great job, Brad, Larissa, and Nick the Turtle. Anyways, let's dive in and tell the story of Hickory Point Mall in Forsyth and where it's going for this 70s gem. Hickory Point's story begins in Decatur, Illinois in the 1970s. While Eastland Mall from the last episode was the first Copacan Mall to be built in Illinois, Hickory Point was the last of Copacans, and they were trying desperately to get zoning approval for the construction of a mall from Decatur city officials. Downtown businesses heavily lobbied against the mall idea, which is why on July 8, 1974, the mall's final proposal was declined, being missed by just one vote. However, the neighboring village of Forsyth on Decatur's north side, which is essentially a very small suburb, made a proposal to Copacan and offered land right along Highway 51. Copacan gladly swiped up the land, and construction of Hickory Point Mall would begin shortly after. As the mall was nearing opening, downtown Decatur was preparing for the worst, and JCPenney had already left for an anchor. Little did Decatur city officials know, but saying no to the mall and giving it to Forsyth was a decision that would bite them in the butt very hard, very soon. In October of 1978, Hickory Point Mall would hold its grand opening ceremony and ribbon cutting, along with JCPenney, which had just been opened to the public a few months prior. With nearly 700,000 square feet of leasable retail space, three anchors being JCPenney, Bergner's, and Carson Pierce Scott before the merger, and over 100 stores which were quickly filling up, Hickory Point Mall was a massive success. Each day the halls would be packed as hundreds of thousands went from store to store. Moms shopping for clothes in JCPenney and Bergner's, teens getting their style on at Deb or getting the coolest new albums at Musicland, dads listening to Van Halen, Boston, or The Who blare over the radios while they relax on a bench near the central fountains, all while the kids spent as much money as they could beg from their parents at Aladdin's Castle and KB Toys. As downtown Decatur died an agonizing death from the mall, Forsyth saw their annual sales shoot up from $6,000 to over $500,000. Now a booming suburb, all thanks to that massive mall. Forsyth was able to build a new library, city hall, parks, sewer system, and improve all of its roads. Former Mayor Terry Howley of Decatur stated in the 2000s, "We've been paying the price ever since the vote." Going into the 80s, Hickory Point would see its first additions. Quickly as we walk towards the center court, I'll let you enjoy Jump, which was actually playing in the mall when I was there. But of course, thanks to some very noisy kids, I re-added it in. As if you were truly in this giant, empty mall, gawking at those center court fountains, hearing the song as it would have and should have been. In 1983, Kohl's would become Hickory Point's fourth anchor in a small southwest expansion. As the 80s continued, the mall would see the rest of its 100 spaces filled with more and more stores. Spencer's, Foot Locker, Radio Shack, Orange Julius, Claire's, Walden Books. It seemed with each day, Hickory Point was getting more and more popular, as residents would come as far as the Twin Cities for the mall. Each day, the parking lots would be packed end to end. The mall started to annually hold shows, small concerts, and other performances in the center court, and regularly car shows would fill the halls with the hottest makes of those years. In 1989, Carson's would sell their store to Von Maur at Hickory Point and College Hills, which we covered briefly in the last episode. Coming up here, the footage isn't tampered in any way. No filters. The old Sears wing is literally just bathed in this creepy green light. It's so picturesque and weird, and this whole side of the mall where Sears and JCPenney once were feels left behind. Old jewelry stores, the old book world, and even some walled off spaces. And if you look in the right direction and stare down this mesmerizing hallway, you get sucked into the world of liminal spaces. As the 90s began, Hickory Point was already in the works of signing on its fifth major anchor. In 1998, Sears would become the fifth in a small northwest expansion similar to Kohl's. MC Sports would also join the lineup as the mall's first junior anchor. As Hickory Ridge went into the 2000s, a lot was changing. Inline tenants were switching hands and closing, and each month in the early 2000s, it seemed like the mall was losing popularity. With the rise of online shopping and the construction of newer big box options like Walmart and nearby Menards. That year in 2000, Copacan would spend millions renovating the mall's interior, bringing it to how it looks today. And just 5 years later, they would sell the mall to CBL in the same sale as Eastland from the last episode. Once the beautiful JCPenney court, this area featured trees, plants, seating, and a beautiful sculpture called Rita's Rainbow, which was built by Rita Blitt herself. Married to Irwin, who you may remember from the last episode, pioneered Copacan's malls in Illinois. Rita had several art pieces and statues throughout all these malls. During the 2000 remodel, everything was stripped down to what you see today, a bland, white paradise of modern glory. 2007, Stephen Barry's would open a store in the mall as a new junior anchor, however would close within just a few months as the company went bankrupt. Old Navy, another larger tenant, would leave around this time, and in 2010, Shoe Department Encore would open in the old Stephen Barry's space. Also in 2009, the mall would be used to film scenes for the movie The Informant. As the 2010s began, Hickory Point Mall was going into a shift. More and more tenants were being merged and becoming larger, and more empty stores were being walled off entirely, especially near Sears and JCPenney. In May of 2014, JCPenney would close their doors at Hickory Point, followed by Sears in November. These two losses weren't unexpected, as all over the mall, vacancy was becoming a serious issue. Luckily that October, Hobby Lobby would open in the former JCPenney spot. As the mid-2010s came and went, things were starting to look up for the mall in ways. While inline tenants were still leaving, the much larger spaces were being swooped up by stores like Ross, Ulta Beauty, TJ Maxx, and Hibbett's. This center court fountain, I swear, this is the best part of the mall. In old photos you can see just how it's been unchanged since opening. That giant yellow sculpture though, I'm not sure. How long has that been here? Let me know below. Regardless, this center court area is the one part of the mall that has quite a few people and stores in it. Von Maur is a really rare draw for the area, and I'd say it fits perfectly in here. In 2017, the popular book world near Sears closed for good, formerly Walden Books, as the entire company went bankrupt and closed all of their locations. The next year, in August of 2018, Bergner's closed as the parent Bon-Ton stores went bankrupt, leaving the mall without any of its original anchors. In August of 2020, CBL would sell the mall to the infamous Namdar, who holds current ownership to this day. Under Namdar's control up until today, the mall hasn't opened any new stores, as they are known to leave malls and have left Hickory Point to fend for itself. And that brings us to where we are today. Hickory Point Mall is not the place it once was. It isn't the gleaming mall that saved the village of Forsyth anymore. Unless you're walking in the center court near Von Maur, this mall feels very dead. Its anchor hallways bleed empty storefronts. And that old Sears wing especially just feels too uninviting with those creepy green lights. So what does the future of Hickory Point Mall hold? This mall, which is completely still viable, in a great spot of Decatur Metro, still has a very good chance at saving itself. CBL was able to prove that when they brought in tons of big brands during the 2010s. I guess we just have to wait and see what Namdar does for it. However, sadly, I believe that'll be very little, if anything, since they have been known to buy dead malls and let them die for the land. If you guys are ever in the area, stop by at Hickory Point and shop at some of these local places, or just find yourself taking a rest at the center court fountain steps like I did, for quite a while. Or decipher if that old Sears wing is haunted or not. Guys, I want to thank you for watching today's episode. Hickory Point was an absolute treat to visit. This was another mall I've always wanted to see, and I absolutely loved every second of it. If you guys enjoy my Dead Mall content, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future Dead Malls episodes. And make sure to head over to the Patreon to support me, and I'll send you a monthly Dead Mall Polaroid, taken and signed by me. Next week, as we finish out day 1 of the Cincinnati expedition, we'll be taking an evening visit to one of the coolest and saddest 70s malls I've ever seen. This one is located in a lake town right along the border. Guess which mall we'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. Oh, and also, starting now, if you guess right, I'll delete your comments so others can't see the answer. So, if you see your guess deleted, just know you got it right. Anyways, until next time, have yourselves a lovely day, and peace out guys. See you later.